Crystal Hitchcock, welcome to the Big Crystal. I'm sorry, it's a mess today.
It throws everything off.
You think we'd be used to it? We're in Montana, of all things.
Finally, welcome to the Big Fat Podcast.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here.
We did try to do this once before. April had lost her voice, and
Yeah, I could not talk. That's the first time I've been that sick in 6 years. I didn't come down with anything, and then I got hit. And I got hit pretty hard. But
Well, I figure that the timing is always right when it all comes together. So
it does.
No
it's
worries.
supposed to be.
didn't we end up being closed that week too?
Yeah.
Because I was like, yeah, it was a weird week. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a weird couple weeks. So
it was. I was like, all of a sudden, I was just hanging out down here with nothing to do and talking to April, though. She had really wanted to talk with you. I've done podcast episodes by myself. And, but sometimes, yeah, anyway, April had said, no, this is going to be a good one. And, now know what I know about you. We were able to talk a little bit that day. There's a lot. I think that we are interested in a lot of many of the same things. So you're from Columbus? Are you from Columbus? Tell me where you're from again.
Well, I grew up over in eastern Montana. I grew up in Forsyth.
Whoop.
I was a Forsyth Dogie.
Oh,
My parents and my brother's still over there. Graduated and then headed off to college in Bozeman.
okay.
And then finished up my master's degree in Billings and spent some time in Billings. Worked up in the Roundup community for a couple of years, and then met my husband and had a longer term vision of where we wanted to raise kids. And he was here and I was in Billings, and it was a pretty easy given that, well, we weren't raising kids in Billings.
Yeah.
I grew up a small town girl.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be anything but a small town girl.
Yeah.
And I want my kids the small town community mentality.
Yeah. So how long have you been here then in this community?
12 years.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. I have family. My grandma lived in Forsyth, many, many, many years ago. So, yeah, they had a big ranch and farm out in Forsyth for, long time ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure my dad would know.
Yeah.
Feels
Yep.
like everybody has a connection to eastern Montana.
There's somewhere, yeah. If you were born in Montana or anywhere, you've got some type of connection. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So college, what did you study now in college? Because I know that you have done therapy. You've talked to me about this, that you've done some therapy, but that's not your main focus now. And I want to get into that. I kind of want to just
Start from the beginning.
Like, how did you get into therapy? And then how did you get into where you're at now and what your focus is now? And I want to hit all about that and learn some things from you.
Yeah. So you know how you have those moments in life where it's like kind of like a light bulb moment, and you get some great, just some clarity, and you may not know what you're doing, but you're doing the next right thing. And when I went to college, I originally actually had signed up to become a teacher. My mom worked in the school. That's what I knew. I was sitting in my dorm room one day and I was looking through the catalog. They give you this giant book of all the options you can take in Bozeman, and I came across this one, Human Services, which was an undergraduate degree, and then you'd have to go on and get your master's in mental health and rehabilitation, or mental and a master's in counseling, whatever. And it just in that moment, sitting there in my dorm room at 19, I can still so clearly see the picture. I'm changing my major and I'm going to be a therapist.
Huh. It just came to you.
Yeah, it just really came to me that was the bigger picture. And so I changed my major, and I actually transferred to Billings, and just kept doing the next right thing until I graduated with a master's degree. And then I decided, I didn't have anything going on in my life. I wasn't married, didn't have kids, so I hightailed it through. But it took me 8 years to get a license as a therapist, but it normally takes people 10. So it's a very big investment of time.
Yeah, it's a very intensive.
And then there's, you have a specific focus or how does that work?
Well, when you graduate, not necessarily. You don't have to. You can, and like in the area, or you can just go out. Because after you graduate, then you have to do 1,500 hours under somebody who's already licensed before you can even sit for your exam. And actually, there are two different types of licensure. And the road I took, I could do 1,500 hours while I was in graduate school. And then you do 1,500 hours postgraduate school. And then, so you have to have a total of 3,000 hours supervised before you can even send into the state and say, can I sit for my exam?
And it wasn't like a specialty. It was just a broader thing. So it wasn't towards children or toward,
No.
it was just kind of a broad roundabout.
Well, it's just kind of like wherever you can get somebody to supervise your hours.
Yeah.
Because that can be hard.
Yeah.
I spent, in my undergraduate, I worked at the Community Crisis Center in Billings. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's still available. It's just right down the street from the hospitals. The hospitals put the funds in to take some weight off the ERs for people who wanted a place to stay for the night, homeless, and legitly to give back to the community too, for people who were in crisis and needed somebody there.
They needed that help right then.
And in that moment.
Yeah.
And so.
And it wasn't an ER situation, but
Right.
it was an emergency situation.
Yeah, right. They were in crisis.
Yeah.
So we were a 24-hour facility. I worked nights and went to school during the day and worked with a lot of people with co-occurring diseases that lived on the streets.
Oh, wow. You had to see all kinds of stuff, huh?
That changed me as a human.
Oh, I bet.
Hearing them, it just changed my perspective on humanity. I still believe to this day, everybody you meet could has a story that could break your heart.
Most people do.
Yes, but in that story, they also have that resiliency and that strength and that inner light that motivates you and makes you want to rise to be a bigger person. Because these people, some of the stories, I'm not even going to repeat them. It would vicariously traumatize people, and they were still alive. I would think in my life, I'd be like, I'd just rather be dead.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
strength, and then that's.
Yeah, and then worked with a lot of people who just needed help right there in that moment. So in undergraduate school, I did that, but it was rough, and I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be. So that's how I ended up in Roundup. I went to work at the school. I do love children. I've always loved children. And
What was it about initially, though, when you were 19? What was it, though, that you're like 10 years of, you did it in 8. That is a massive commitment. What was it about that field of being a therapist? Why were you, what was it that spoke to you?
To help, or you just had this calling, or.
And calling, I think, is a great word. God. I have a very strong foundation in my faith, and I've always been one that's I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I just feel like I just know that this is the next right thing. And I'm actually 20 years later, I'm in that exact position right now again, and I'm just keep doing the next right thing. I don't know what's going to happen, but just keep doing the next right thing. Yeah.
I asked that because there's many times, all the time, my mom's always like, you could have been this, you should have been that.
Well, you think about your life right now, and it's
oh, that's the thing.
What am I supposed to do? What is the right thing? You question. I'm a questioner.
Hey, I'm saying that as many times as I was underground and water and oil is coming down on me and I'm getting hit by rocks, there was many times I thought to myself, why didn't I just follow what my mom said? I should have been a therapist. I just thought that, dealing with helping people deal with their problems was just going to be too much for me. And as I'm soaking wet and cold and getting hit with rocks, I thought about it. I was like, why didn't I just be a therapist like my mom said? 100 times my mom has told me.
Just be a therapist.
As I'm getting driven down the mountain to the ER for stitches, I'm just like, I should have been a therapist. I don't know.
That's your affirmation statement.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's why I'm fascinated. I'm like, how did you see the sign and I didn't?
Yeah, that's what we need the help with. Where do these signs come from? Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm looking at our hours now, and I'm like, 8 years. I could do 8 years. Let's go do 8 years.
Yeah, right.
But then she said, you're talking about all-nighters, and working during the day and all night. I'm like, oh, it's still my same schedule. Anyway, enough about me. So you got to Roundup and you're just like, I'm going to go work. You were at the school system there?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to touch on that a little bit before we can come back. I feel like everybody has their capacity for something. We were talking about artificial intelligence, AI.
Yeah.
Or the physicalness of being underground, or the emotional impact. Like, everybody has their space where they can hold a lot of space.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's been gifted in me been able to hold a lot of space. Like, my nervous system rarely gets rocked. Like, it takes a lot, and I can look at pain and stay very present with it. I could not be underground. I could not work at the mine. I could not do those. I'm very physical. I love to work out by my choice.
I see what you're saying, and that's where that's interesting you say that, because I don't feel that I have that. You're able to just take a lot. You have a lot of space, or a lot of hard drive, or whatever you want to call it, where you can store all of that or deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't feel that I do. I feel like I get too wrapped up in it. I would get I think I would get too emotionally wrapped up in it, or why don't you just do this?
The emotional space, because I'm super sensitive and I have big feelings, whether they're sad, happy, big feelings. So
not that you don't have big feelings, but you have an ability, you're saying, to separate to keep it all separate, or keep it in check. Is that what you're kind of trying to say? Yeah,
or even like we were talking about, no problems, only lessons, because there's definitely, it has required a lot of growth. It has gifted me in so many ways to be able to get down to the level of my children and think like a 10 and 12-year-old, because I've sat in the presence of a 10 and 12-year-old in some of their deepest pains or biggest struggles, where or like in my marriage, or me as an individual wanting to really being intentional and holding a lot of integrity within myself to develop to my greatest potential each day, and that can always look different. Being in my marriage and being really intentional and invested in my relationship, knowing that that's really important, because I've been on the side of divorce and children in the midst of divorce, and the pain and the suffering. And so even though I have to sit with that, it also helps me be able to be like, how sometimes you hear people say, I learned what I wanted to be by seeing what I didn't want.
Yeah, and the empathy of you feeling those things and seeing that person in that same situation, so you know how you feel and the struggles, so you're able to grace people with that same. I totally understand, because that's how, with the struggles you're through, you learn how to deal with those situations and other people and be,
the aspect of compassion.
Yes.
Where we have to find a different avenue where empathy and compassion are not the same.
They are totally not the same. I had this conversation with him not too long ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where that emotional intelligence comes in. And that's something that really fires me up. I can feel that in my body as we speak. And I'm a very body-based person. Like we talked about, how do you know what the right choice is? Well, I feel it in my body. I just know.
Yeah.
There's just an inner knowing. And that emotional intelligence. And as we go to, there are aspects of the world that are going more towards the AI, the artificial intelligence. You will never replace emotional intelligence.
Nope.
Except through, that is not anything that any kind of is computable through a computer.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll be able to learn how to fake it good enough, though. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And the interesting thing is empathy and compassion, they're totally different things. How you can have compassion for somebody but not get so wrapped up into it where it drains you. And that's huge. That's so huge.
I'm one of the meatheads who probably has a hard time discerning between what is empathy and what is compassion. So talk about that, because I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm trying to. Was it you and I who had that conversation?
Yeah. Where I was talking about, being able to have compassion for people, but not so much empathy to where you're taking all that in on you, to where you have those same feelings, but you can still have that compassion for somebody. Whether what I'm. Yeah. Anyway, she probably can explain it better than me.
No, I mean, I think that it's each to their own perspective and experience, where there's not like a Webster dictionary definition so much words, and it is that emotional intelligence piece, and I don't think we talk about it. It's way more talked about, way more. In the last, I don't know, Brene Brown became famous in like 2015 or so, and she really brought light to a lot of emotional intelligence in humanity through her 13 years of studies. And so empathy is that part where you feel so deeply, but you also you can potentially, I say, feel responsible, because it pings on you so hard. And there's also balance in empathy where you like, I empathize with you, I feel you, but you don't carry it. And compassion is that, like, oh man, I don't know what to say, but I'm so glad you told me, and I just want you to know that I will stand right here with you, and I see you where you're at, is kind of where I put my feet in that. Yeah. Because I don't want to make it sound like empathy is a bad thing, because people really do relate with the word empathy. Empathy is definitely a word that people...
You're in their shoes. You've felt that. So it's easy, like you've been there, so you can really empathize with that. Where compassion's like, okay, maybe I've not been there, but I can still feel for you. I don't know. I mean, broader.
Right. No, I get that, because I like say that compassion, like, oh, you lost your job. How, like, I've not lost my job, but not that I would say that, but you're like, I haven't lost my job, but I have total compassion for that person.
Yeah.
But the person who has lost their job, and then somebody's like, oh, they lost their job, they're like, I know that feeling.
Because it'll bring back all that feeling and...
Yeah.
Like when somebody tells you they got divorced, and you're like, it just...
I go through that every time.
Sick every single time.
I used to not, being younger, not have experienced those things. But I've been through divorce, and so now it's like when people tell me, I get sick for people when they tell me that they're going through it. I just feel it. I feel that,
all those feelings that you went through.
Yeah, I feel darkness and just a pit, just something inside of me.
Yeah. And
I'm just like, I mean, I don't sit there and dwell on it, like, but I feel it.
Yeah.
I don't want that for anybody. I'm always like, especially, somebody told us just the other day here locally in town, who's been married for years, and years and years and years, and she's told us she's going through a divorce, and I'm just like,
yeah,
just so
the pit of your stomach just turns.
Yeah,
I know divorce is brutal.
It is.
Yeah. So tell me then, you were going to say something about how you ended up then going to Roundup, and why you took that path with that.
Well, there was a program that I could get my supervised hours, and there was potential that I could get my loans forgiven. And so I made the choice. I didn't really know what would happen, but I knew it would be, I could get my license. So I went that way. And I lived in Billings, and actually I was married before I married my current husband. So I was married for 2 short years while I lived in Billings too.
Were you then commuting to Roundup?
Yeah.
That's a commute.
Mm-hmm. There was other people there were other people who commuted to Roundup too. So we carpooled, and it ended up being great, but it was winter was rough.
Yeah.
And so then I got my license through a program up there and worked in the school.
Oh.
Yep.
How was that working in the school?
Loved it.
Really?
I loved it. The Roundup people are wholesome. They're down to earth. I made a lot of great friends that I'll forever have in my life. The school, it was much different than here. I then transferred to here, and it was like night and day.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very different culture.
Yeah. Huh.
But it was good.
That's what we'll call it. It's a different culture.
Yeah, all towns in Montana, you get to little one. Every town has its own
culture.
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. So working in the schools, I mean, that's interesting. So many people right now are down on the kids and down on the younger generations right now. And my daughter, she follows this Reddit. She was telling me the other day how she just watches it like a train wreck because it's this certain Reddit thread where I don't know how Reddit works, but this is how I understand it, that it's teachers who just tell their horror stories on there and about how they go give each other, pep talks in the teacher's lounge before they go deal with the kids that day because they're going to just get the finger flipped at them and told F you and things thrown at them, and in these schools all around the country. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure these are all, a lot bigger metropolis areas, or I don't know. I mean, you have problems in small town schools too, but she was just saying how she's just amazed and so discouraged about the youth and about the type of problems that these kids are having, and just complete lack of respect, and how these teachers just go and try to survive the day. And she's super discouraged about our youth, our culture as Americans, and how our kids growing up. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Well,
are you as dark as my daughter? And she's ready to give up. I'm like, just hold on.
Give up on that.
she's just now pregnant with her first, and she just found this out a couple weeks ago. So I think this is also why she's paying attention to what's going on.
She's
all
like,
of a sudden, she's like,
what's going on in the world?
Yeah. So you didn't feel that way in Roundup, do you? But what are your thoughts on that about the kids nowadays and some of these issues or problems that they're going through? What are your thoughts?
My thought on humanity: everybody's doing the best they can with what they have, and if you don't like it, then do something to change it.
Yeah.
Step up. We all have a responsibility in humanity, and if it pings on you and it's something that you don't like, advocate, act, volunteer, because it only takes, I believe, and studies have shown this too. It's not just my opinion. It just takes one safe person for a kid to make it out with their feet a little bit on the ground, to withstand a lot of the trauma. And that's not just kids. Kids are more helpless in the way they depend on.
So you're saying they just need like one person in their life who has that impact on them?
Yes.
Okay.
They have one safe person that they can go to, and they can usually withstand. It's that's the thing. And you never know if you're going to be that person, how you show up for a kid. My husband and I like to coach, and I love that because like I said, I love being active, and I did a lot of sports, and I love being able to have the impact on the kids to be physical, but also have sportsmanship and good attitudes, and see not just get lost in the competition and the winning and the losing.
Yeah.
And my husband is a very laid back man, and I think he is a wonderful role model.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what's more or less lacking in a lot of these places. I just feel like it's a lack of leadership, a lack of role models. I think it's a lack of, I think people get fed up. I think people are in the systems, and, I don't know. I try to see it from everybody's sides. It's not just teachers giving up. I know teachers are up against administration, and administration are up against parents. So there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of nuance to some of these problems. So I get it that it's not just, the kids are just terrible kids.
It's like one of those things, like, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be that, even if everybody else isn't doing it, be that person, if that's what you believe in.
Yeah. I know that not everybody would agree, and I know that there are some circumstances that are out of people's hands. So it's not like I'm like, your responsibility is in it all.
Yeah.
But I do say, like, if you're bitching, then what are you willing to do?
I've always said, if you're sitting there willing to like voice it on Facebook and voice it on all these things, if you can voice it, but what are you going to do to change it on your end? You can't change the world, but you can change your part.
But that's a thing. Like, we were talking about leadership and where we're having impact. I believe in the power of one. And I always believed, even when I was in the starting of this, if I change the life of one person, then I know that I was in the right, like in my right where I needed to be. And another thing, as I've evolved and expanded, and knowing that I have the potential to upset people, because I do have some strong principles. If I change the life of one and I upset 100, would it be worth it? Yes, it would. I would never back down from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful because you don't know where that leads to. If you can look 50 years down the line of what that impact, how that positive, it's a positive impact on that
how
one.
he's changed
of
then
what, of
lives
who all,
or,
how many lives that affects, and it just goes out from there. So,
yeah,
The ripple effect.
yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm always interested in that. I'm always interested in cases of like somebody's life got saved, or there was some moment where somebody had an impact that it changed them, and then they go in a different direction. It's fascinating. It can be simple things. It doesn't have to be like life-saving. It could just be that somebody quit a job and went and did something, and then somebody else who was there got inspired by that and said, you know what, they went out and did this, and I've always been scared to go do this. I love those stories where those people are all of a sudden like, I'm going to go do this. And that decision right there, because they saw somebody else go take a chance and go do something, they changed probably the future of their family and like who their kids meet someday. I mean, it's just one of those, like, this decision changed all these other lives, a whole course of things that has happened now from somebody making a decision that they got tired of this and they want to better something, and so they go take a different path. I'm always fascinated by those stories, and where does that lead?
Absolutely. I had a friend's dad tell me, I was a senior in high school, and I wasn't particularly close with her parents, and not even really her, but he said to me, no one can ever take an education away from you. And that drove me a lot of time, because I spent a lot of time in school and had a 60 credit master's program. I had to write a capstone. Like, it was no joke.
Oh, that's so overwhelming to me. I have nothing but respect for you. I couldn't do it.
But that, that is something, just that sentence, no one can ever take an education away from you. And it was like, you're right. And I will always be equipped for the rest of my life with this under my belt.
Yeah.
So like, even though I'm totally feel like I'm at a pivotal time in my life, like at this crossroads of things are changing, I can feel it. I'm not totally like, holy, what's going to happen? I'm like, well, I'll regroup if I need to.
Yeah.
I have an education.
Yeah. So let's talk about that crossroads then. So what is this crossroads that you're at? Because I've seen that you. Tell me really quick, give me a rundown of all the different projects that you have going on. I know you have the yoga studio. You're over here. I don't know if there's some kind of a partnership with the gym next door, or if you're just friends with everybody over there. But what all do you have going on now? Because you're not full time doing therapy, right? Mm-hmm. What are you doing, and what is it? What's your pull? What's going on?
Yeah. So I have the yoga studio, and at the yoga studio, my intention always with the yoga studio was to create a really wholesome, fulfilling place for the community, and bring in things that feel different than sitting at the bar, like to give people the opportunity. And I have nothing against that either. People do what people do, but
right.
Give people options. And so I teach yoga over there twice a week. I also have events over there as often as I can. Anybody watching this who would like to have an event at my studio, I am all about getting people exposure on their feet, support, like whatever you need to expand your business.
Yeah.
So I've had a number of different crafts over there. I have a chiropractor over there who does amazing body work, and she's also a functional medicine doctor, and she does sound therapy healing. And
I'm glad to know that she's over there, because I think that's who Chuck Young, the Destroyer, called me one day about and said, you got to meet this chiropractor who's in your town. And he just said all these positive things. Yeah. And we did some texting, and he was talking about a
totally check that out.
podcast and some other things, and I think that's the same person, because I think I while I was checking out some of your Facebook stuff and your yoga studio stuff, I think I saw something, and I was like, that's the name. I'm like, and I didn't ever follow up, and she didn't follow up, and we kind of, it just died. But I've been meaning to do that. So bringing her in there has been a good thing.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And yeah, she's an incredible human. I'm just so thankful that I have her in my life. And so she's over there. I also I still do some private practice stuff. I still see a handful of clients, and I probably never will not. I do love aspects of that. I love that. And
are these clients that you've just had for years, or are they just kind of you keep a rotating small number of people?
Some I've had for a long time. Some are just ones that I feel called to work with. I always, when people call and they're like, I hear you're a therapist, I always have them come in and do a little meeting and see if I'm the right type of person for them, and they're the right type of person for the healing that I provide.
Yeah.
Because I'm not general anymore, like just anybody who wants to come in. And then if it jives and we all feel cool on that, then we move forward.
Yeah.
I also do breath work and do a lot of coaching, body coaching. If you look at my stuff on a social media platform, I'm an embodiment mentor, which means healing the trauma in the body and allowing yourself to embody just the good things in life, the joys and the happiness. And as crazy as it sounds, when I first started down the road of trauma therapy and getting an education, the idea of somebody holding a positive feeling felt crazy to me. And then I was like, it's very true. It's very true. Some people can't do that. And so allowing people to be in good relationship with their body, because I always think the body keeps the score.
Yeah, there's no way around it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so I do, I've got a lot under my belt in a healing aspect. Not officially like shamanic, but do a lot of spiritual, a lot of body, a lot of.
So in that part of it, like with the breath work and some of these other things, are you doing that in private, in smaller groups with people, or how does that exactly work?
Yeah, I do it individually, but I also have groups like Ty is the chiropractor.
Okay.
Her and I are having a new moon ceremony with, I'll lead a yoga nidra, which is yoga and meditation, and she'll do sound bowls and her tuning fork. We'll have a ceremony like that. And we try to do something like that. I also do breath work in a group. Group healing is great. I also offer a group healing experience that is body work, working with astrology, just with the energy. And this is going to, I think that people might get a little conflicted feelings about this, because as I talk about this, and I also mentioned earlier, I have a very strong foundation in my faith and in my relationship with God. And still, even though I practice this stuff and it's controversial, people question if it's still Christianity, that am I worshiping another God? And the answer is no, I'm absolutely not. Am I utilizing the means that are given to me within that is all via created through God, because God is the creator? That's what I feel like I'm doing.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's what I was talking about, that I got distracted with technical issues and I had all kinds of different things I was starting to lose focus on. But I wanted to ask you about some of those things, about what your thoughts are on that in those areas, and just because I find you interesting. In going through, since Cole was like, hey, you should really talk to Crystal, she's super interesting, and a lot of the things I think that I talked to you about, I see that you would be kind of in tune with Crystal. So when he said that, then I started to look up into your social media, and I'm like, okay, you're interesting because you're not so
easy,
cut and dry about, okay, you're not this one stereotype like that. Like somebody would say, okay, well, if you're this, then you can't be this. Mm-hmm. And if you're this, you can't be this. And so that I have found is interesting, is what is your position on those things? And what kind of reception you get in a small town in Montana, and how do you, you're very headstrong. You're very confident and how do you maintain that in this small town? That's not easy for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of opposition do you run into about those types of things? And what is just that? What is your thoughts
Because
on that?
religion, a lot of times, I just want to throw that in, is so cut and dry. It's either this way or it's that.
People.
Yeah, what I've seen, it's either this way or it's this way. You know what I'm saying? There's really, most people are like, there's not that little gray area. So for you to have all that is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, growing up on a ranch and just being in nature a lot of my life, and among animals. I spent so much time horseback, and I just really think a lot of my foundation with my relationship with God was created through that, being in the bigger world, and a lot of alone time, and a lot of what I think is the purest essence of creation from our Creator has put me in there. But as I've grown, I just have felt like there's more spiritual nature available to us beyond Scripture. I've read the Bible, I go to church, I raise my kids in the church, and I'm very conscientious of what I am worshiping. And that's where I think that people get a little miffed, is that it's the belief that you're worshiping crystals, or you're worshiping sound bowls, or you're worshiping another god. I went to Bali in 2019, and over there they do worship multiple gods, right? They're Muslim and Hindu is their primary thing. I actually, this is probably, I'm sure this is going to come into our conversation, so I just might as well put it out there. I was at Naked Yoga. I had went to this class. It had fallen upon me. It changed my life, and we did yoga naked. It was 5 of us girls. It was a private, it was a very ceremonial, very beautiful. And I said at the end, I wish Adam wouldn't have ate that apple. I wish Adam and Eve wouldn't have ate the apple. And it was so funny to me because they go, "Who's that?" I was like, "From the Bible?" They had no clue.
What was their back? I mean, where were they from? I mean, they weren't they weren't tourists. They were just locals, or?
So, the teacher was from the Netherlands.
Okay.
And she had moved to Bali. She had decided she wanted to live in Bali. She's still in Bali. She changed my life. She continued to be in my life for a year plus after that class. And then one gal was from the States, and she has changed my life too. I'm still in contact with her, and I just don't think, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
And then the other ones, they were from other countries, and I don't even know. Their English was pretty broken up, but it's a very interesting thing.
What about that experience then? Because I wasn't bringing that up, but you brought it up, but I'm like, what is it about that experience that makes you actually make a statement like that at the end of that kind of an experience? Like, what's the difference between that and like traditional, like people in yoga studios all over here, other than being surrounded by like paradise, Bali? I mean,
It was paradise.
but what about that experience makes that such like I don't know, is it I don't what the term is, enlightening? I don't know what's the term. What was that experience then?
Yeah, I just brought that up because we were talking about being in a small community and not really.
Yeah.
Well, I posted some pictures of me nude. You can't see anything, but I'm in the flesh and you can see it, and I'm in nature, and it's supposed to be like
Right, but it's not like full whatever. It's
not pornographic. Like that is not the intention. It's about loving your body.
Right. Yeah.
And so I've posted those in this small community, and the reception has been, it's really rift. It's made some rift for sure.
Yeah, as I imagine it would.
Yeah. But others are really inspired, and that's, again, change 1, upset 100. It was worth it. If I inspired you to love your body a little more, love who you are a little more because of that, then great. That's awesome. Anyway, that experience, it just was very safe. Like you're in your most vulnerable state. You're completely raw with a group of strangers. And I didn't want to do it. And the friend I was with, he wanted to get a tattoo at this particular place in Bali, and I was so pissed at him by the time we got there because it was like a wreck trying to get there. He thought it was close, tried to walk. I was sweating, we were melting, we were passing tattoo shops. I'm like, why can't we just get a tattoo here? So we end up at this tattoo shop after I've cussed at the like little moped driver because he's taking me down a road this big and it's crazy. And
I feel
so
like we could have done a podcast just on this experience.
Yeah.
I want to break down this whole trip all of a sudden.
And so he talked me into doing it, and it was just very enlightening. You know, I think that God sees us at our core, and I got to see, and we got to see each other at each other's core too.
Yeah.
With zero judgments, with zero expectations, because we didn't hold that in ourselves. Therefore, we didn't put it on others. We weren't comparing. We were all just very real and raw as we all could get, and completely safe.
Then we go silent. I'm just taking it all in. I'm trying to put myself in that role, in that position, and be like, man, I don't know that I could.
The vulnerability
The
that
vulnerability.
you just put, the vulnerability, and to let that go and to be in that position is astounding.
It was. But I'm like that person who's like, it's hard, let's do it, you know, like just go, right? So I'm like, she's like, well, take your clothes off, you know, as you feel comfortable. And so I just took my clothes off. I'm like, this is what we're here for. I'm just rip the Band-Aid. Let's go. And later, a gal.
That's a very Montana attitude.
It is.
So we have a chore to do. We have something hard to do. Let's
Do
get
it.
your snow boots on and go feed those calves.
Yeah, let's just get it done.
They got to be fed.
Work has to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like my friends tell me from here, Eastern Montana girls do it different. Like we do. So it was, and later a gal said, you know, it really helped me feel courageous enough to be able to do that. So we were like in a circle of women really supporting each other. And I really believe in the unity, not just the unity. I mean, I spend time in cultivating relationships specifically with women because we project on each other so hard. Mm-hmm. Women are hard on each other, but I want to cultivate the relationships with all of humanity. But we, in the original origins, it was tribal. Women were together, and that's been very lost.
So what about that experience really changed it for you? What was that where you were just like, oh, this is like...
What opened up to you?
Yeah, what did that open for you to go the way, you know?
Is that what kind of changed you in this changing period you're in right now? Or is that before this?
No, I mean, Bali and all of that was a mixture of things. I had made the commitment in 2019 on December 31st of 2018. I was not going to use any substance for a whole year. And I made that commitment to myself. And that before that was when I had gotten the investigation. I was investigated by the federal government if I knowingly or unknowingly had committed fraud. And I had unknowingly, no idea, had that they consider that fraud. And because I was supervising a gal and I wasn't doing according to the federal government standards, private insurances, it was not a problem with. There was no problem. It was just Medicaid in the federal government.
Which there's so many rules, like, I don't,
That'd be exhausting.
Yeah.
with everything, that I can see how something would be easy to slip up and not know that you're doing something wrong. I'm in a constant state of that in business and life.
You never know what you're doing.
I figure somebody's going to come tell me.
You've been doing this wrong the whole time.
You didn't know that rug was under you, so I'm just going to pull it out.
Yeah.
And then you'll know.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so that happened before Bali?
Yes.
Okay.
So that started in 2018. It started the summer of 2017, and then January of 2018 is when they called me. They're like, we're investigating you. And I had my supervising, how we talk about teachers and like all the system we're in. So it's so broken because they want therapists to get supervised. And so when this therapist is like, this undergrad had asked me to supervise her. It's like, yeah, I'm going to give you a good experience. I didn't get a great experience. I want you to have a great experience. You're changing lives. Let's do this. I was paying her a wage, like paying taxes. Thank God. It was honest. Obviously, I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. So I couldn't supervise her, but the federal government wants her supervised, right? Yeah. So I get in trouble, pay $150,000 back. Oof. Like that whole thing was cost my husband and I $150,000 over a period of 4 years. Oh, she was her integrity was so great. She paid me what I had paid her for those clients, because I had paid her wage to see those clients. And she was her integrity level, she's like, I will pay you back what you have paid me for those clients, because you're going to have to pay those back. And I did. And I had to hire. Where
she could have just been like, I'm clean, I'm out of this.
Well, and she was just about to get licensed. And so she even saw her caseload for free until she could charge it, because she's like, I can't abandon these people, I can't abandon you. And and so she saw, that's Chris McCann. She's in the community. Yes, and she does a lot for the community. She's a wonderful asset to the health and wealth of our community, essentially. And so that brought forth this whole ball, which I still don't feel like I'm on the other side, because I'm here now. So I've been in this since like 2018. In that, I also went to yoga teacher training. The studio came into my life, and I opened that up, and now and practicing with people totally took a different. It was just different for me, because I was working my ass off.
So just to touch on that or clarify on that, though, that thing with the investigation, that all got settled out and figured out, and everything was made right, and you're not under any investigation at this point, and that was all fixed up.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just saying that to be clear for anybody who's listening, that
it was,
mistakes happen, things get fixed and audited, and you fix things, so that happens. So
Medicaid says that if you know that you've been wrongfully paid, you're expected to pay that back right away. And luckily, I found a lawyer who specializes in this stuff. She's like, you're not the only person this happens to. And so I paid everything ahead that we had calculated that I had been mispaid. And so when she went in to go negotiate with the feds, they were very impressed with what had happened.
Yeah, you didn't realize, and they seen that.
Yeah, and they only fined me $15,000, and
only.
Yeah,
but it could have been probably a lot worse, and other penalties. Yeah, for sure.
They wanted to fine me almost $50,000, and my lawyer said that's the least I've ever seen them fine anybody. But I was working a ton. Like, I was feeling like a lot of responsibility in helping people. And after that came out, it was like, I have been sacrificing my family. My husband was picking up the slack, like he was awesome, and I was working 10 hours a day, and I thought, what am I doing? This is not where I want my energy, my passion, my love to all go. And so I really took a step back and realized, like, my family is my priority.
I see.
Yeah.
I can see how that would contribute to all of that, and that just a general, like, oh, I got to change something. Was the Bali trip, was that like kind of just a retreat? What was that?
I knew my intuition told me at the beginning of January, like, as we entered that year, you're going to go somewhere and it's going to change your life. Like, I knew that was coming, and I just didn't know what. And I was friends, acquaintances with a gal, and she told me, I don't know, sometime, it was probably April, May, I'm having a retreat in Bali. And I said, I'm going. She's like, you want to go? I was like, yep. It's all planned for you, like, all I have to do is pay the money. She's got the food and the place to stay. It was a yoga retreat, and it was good. We would do yoga twice a day, and then she had all the the local attractions that we would go to.
I've never done yoga, and I'm ready to go right now.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful, but obviously I'm a teacher. But yeah, I mean, yoga is a great way to really take a gentle step into your body.
I got to admit, I bought a book or I bought something years ago, and I was like, I got to get into this because I hear that there's good things all about this, and I just had a commitment issue or something. I don't know why I didn't stick up with. I didn't stick. I know that there's good things.
Easy.
It's not easy, and I did.
Very.
I think I probably did it a little bit with Alex back when Alex was living here, and but I couldn't like a lot of things. Couldn't stick with it or something. But I know that it's super good, and I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy who's like, yeah, he's all into that stuff and has the, the discipline to do that and bring some peace to yourself, bring some physical challenges. It's hard.
Well, and I think that, like we talked about, not everybody can hold. You're meant to hold certain things. Yoga is more has more of a mental discipline than a physical discipline at all. Like, you guys have had Cole on here, and I adore Cole. I love him so much, and I'm so happy he's a part of my sphere because he makes me be a better person. But we can go kick ass in the gym and like do it hard and intense, and it's painful. But have him do yoga, he's like, nope.
It's just different.
It's a different kind of challenge, huh?
Yeah. So it's like
we just talked to him about hiking like 90 miles round trip to Mount Everest base camp and back, but he's like, yoga studio?
Yoga class? Nope.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I look at him and I'm like, that dude's hard. He's hardcore,
Well, and I think that people get the also the kind of a misbelief too that you should just go do it at home because it's easy enough to do at home. You can buy lots of books and you can do it.
But it's the
YouTube.
environment.
Absolutely.
It's 100% being in that soft space and the music, like the soft meditative music and all those things.
In my defense, this was 2017. There wasn't a yoga studio. In my defense. Yeah. There wasn't an option.
Quiet and it's, there's just, it's the whole atmosphere.
But it's not just atmosphere, right? You're saying to get out of doing it at home to be part of something else with other people? Is that what
community.
you're getting at?
Yeah, that's why I call it community and connection, because I don't want people to be intimidated by the idea that it's yoga, because really I teach to each class. Like last night I had a gal who broke her arm not that long ago, so I know she has very limited use of her arm. So we didn't do arm stuff. And if you're there to stand on your head and do inversions, my class is not the class for you. I can definitely set you up so you can do that on your own, but not everybody's going to be doing that, nor does everybody want to do that.
Yeah.
And so, and each to their own. I could not have become a yoga teacher or been so committed to my yoga if I didn't have an organized class to get me started.
Yeah.
So it's really is a community thing.
I see it, because that would keep you committed and you're a part of something else.
The accountability of that is a huge thing too.
I've always considered myself not much of a team guy, like not much of like a group guy. But honestly, as I've gotten older and I see that, I'm like, gosh, I want to work out, but like I can't make myself just go do it by myself. And I'm not ever been a guy who's like, I want to just go to the gym and work out with people. I'm not that guy either.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's certain things like I see that if I were to get into it and do it, the only way I'm going to stick to it is that I'm beholden to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that's a big part of it for me with a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what keeps me committed to the gym too. I've been going at noon for, 5 or 6 years, but that's where my friends are.
Yeah.
My friends are doing that. I want to go see my friends, so I guess we'll work out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
were you there in 2017 doing it?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think my daughter Alex was going over there at noon for a little bit.
Yes, she was. I remember
she was super scared about going over there.
Yeah.
And she got over there and she loved it. And she just came home and all the time. I mean, we were working together at the BFL, and I don't know. I don't know why I didn't go, but I was like, you go for it. I was all supportive.
I forgot
about
that.
Yeah.
Right before she got married.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's interesting. So look at that. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, you know my daughter.
Yes,
Alex.
I do.
Yeah. She loved it. She loved being a part of that group. She found out that she was intimidating, and she went over there and she's like, all these people know each other. I'm the youngest one there. And, but then she really enjoyed it. And that sense of community.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is definitely community. That's where my husband and I's best friends are. We spend a lot of time with those people. We see them 5 days a week, and then we enjoy each other's company on the off time too.
Yeah, perfect.
We see all of our best friends between 3:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. Those are our people.
Your breakfast
It's not nearly as healthy. So Bali, that was the big experience there. I've been interested to hear about kind of a little bit about what that was. I don't know, and I don't get involved in the online stuff around here. I really don't. People might think that, or people ask me all the time, did you see this or did you see that? And I'm pretty checked out on certain things. I feel bad to a sort. So, but that's interesting. That what made you feel like you wanted to share that impact on I mean, I know you share it, and you share it with your yoga studio, and you share, but what made you want to share online? And I guess if you can give me a glimpse, we don't want to be whatever the word I'm looking for here. It starts with a C. We don't want to be stirring stuff up, pot stirrers or anything. But was the kind of the fallout to you posting things online that your message is this? You're trying to help people, but others seem to not. What was that reception, and what's that been like?
Yeah. So actually, doing the photo shoot that I did it at the Big Timber Waterfalls. With the
controversial. Sorry, I don't want to be controversial. Go ahead.
I did it with a trusted photographer, a friend of mine at the Big Timber Waterfalls, and after I had that naked yoga in Bali, I always wanted to do that. I just I feel like I don't live in a man's head, so I can't tell you. I can only tell you according to women's perspectives. My perspective, we can be so hard on our bodies. We hide a lot of our body. We shame a lot of our body. And when you go to other places around the world, it doesn't seem like it's like that,
Yeah, culture is a culture thing.
Right.
And yeah.
Everybody just kind of is like, this is my home, this is my body, this is my vessel, just very neutral about it. And I spent so many years of my life anorexic and just really hating myself. And to evolve into this person now, the person who'd stand in front of the mirror, it kind of makes me emotional to think about. Criticize everything. And I'm 100 pounds and stand on the scale to be this person who's almost 40, who could say, I can put myself in front of the world just as I am today. There's nothing special besides what exactly I am in this skin. Because we all deserve to love each other. And we all deserve to love ourselves. We speak so much about loving each other, but we leave out how important it is to love ourselves. And whether that is you're a man or you're a woman. And letting women know that the essence of them in their raw is beautiful, and you don't have to be perfect. What you see, this perfect woman we're always chasing, who is she? Where have you found her? I haven't found her. And that actually she is you. And so really the passion in my heart to love your body, because you only get one, and it holds your soul, your heart, the pure essence of your being. And we're so hard on what we house ourselves in.
It's so true. And there's so many people, I think, chasing that perfection and just beating themselves up. So many of the youth, they
see something and
they see so much of it.
That's perfection, when they don't realize that the other person, feels the same way they do. Because no matter whether you're a model or whether you're the perfect weight, nobody ever thinks that. Right. You never think, oh, I'm just perfect the way I am, and just be okay with it. And it isn't until you're okay with it that you're right where you need to be. You know what I'm saying? When you're not chasing that diet, or you're not chasing that, and you stop, usually your body regulates and you're right,
Well, and that's where I think that the source of so much of projecting on women goes to. You see something in another woman that you think you don't have, and then she sees something that in you that you feel like you don't have. And then all of a sudden it's this fear-based interaction, like, or this superior, inferior existence between each other, where I'm like, I want to lead us in a way of beauty. And I appreciate my beauty and I appreciate your beauty. And I want to lead as a female who is like, I'm not going to let my own stuff become your stuff. I'm not going to project me onto you. So because I am a licensed therapist, though, somebody has complained to the state that I'm posting pornography. It's been dismissed. So there's nothing.
That's going to happen in a small town, right? I mean, small town Montana. I mean, that's gutsy. I mean, to take a position like that, and there's gonna be fallout. I mean, people.
There is, and that person believes they did the right thing.
Yeah, that's their beliefs, and that's how they feel, and that's them, and this is you. And I guess that's where that judgment and all that stuff has to fall away from. And like, okay, this is what you feel and you believe, and that's awesome. But you can't project what you feel and to believe on this person because they do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's, in a very
well, and their rationale was because their teenage daughter was so upset. And that's another piece to me, like, as a 40-year-old and watching what kids are believing about their bodies, and like thinking about me at 10 years old who started into her journey of an eating disorder. That's my daughter's age. She's in the 4th grade. And how youth are, I feel like the pressure on youth is so much even more than when I was a kid. And I don't know if we're all about the same age. I think we're probably pretty close.
Yeah. I grew up in the night. You looked at Kate Moss. That was super, you know what I'm saying? That was huge back then.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I just feel like the pressure on youth to perform. And
there's so much exposure to it online. I mean, there's a constant.
We didn't have that.
There's the filters. There's sometimes not even being able to tell that people are applying filters.
It's the apps that just apply a filter. You don't even put a filter on, and they do it.
Yeah. Because they're competing with the other apps. Because if you look better on this app,
you're going
to gravitate toward that app because you want to be on that app, and that's where you see yourself the best. I mean, is it contributing? Do you feel like? Is it creating the problem, or has there always been a problem, and it's only putting it under the microscope now? I mean, the social media, the exposure that kids are getting there, is social media? Is it the problem, or is it something else?
I think it's always been there. There's just more access to it.
But it's funny mention this is that I seen something yesterday actually that said they don't believe that humans have the capacity to know all the world's problems and all these things and all these train wrecks that are going on and over here in this country and over here in this town. Like, we don't have the capacity to know all these terrible things. And now that all these things are out there and you can get it at a drop and all these notifications, that it's really taking effect on everybody's mental health, physical health, because we're not supposed to know all these horrific things that are going on in the world. And technology has made that possible, and it's causing a really bad, I don't know. And I thought that was a very interesting way to put it. Like, you can, like, all the horrific things that you read, that you see on TV, that you see on social media, like, it is gut wrenching. And at days you're like, some days I was just like, what are we doing? Like, what is this all for anyways? Like, you know what I mean? I mean, seriously, I do that at least once a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree. And I don't think we have the capacity. And unfortunately, unless you have, I don't even know what you would say if you say the intention, or if you just say, like, you just be really conscientious. I don't look at that stuff. I quit reading the news and watching the news or having anything to do with that years ago because it was too hard on me.
Yeah.
I was like, because we live in a world, in our culture, I feel like, that loves to sell fear.
Absolutely.
Loves to sell fear. And so that's what is selling. And you have the same amount of access to the love that's being put out in the world too.
But you don't see a lot of that.
You don't go.
That's not the mainstream.
That's not what you're being fed.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's like like a diet. Like, you have to choose
Yeah.
what you expose yourself to.
And our youth, unfortunately, they don't have that discernment and can't be like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore because this isn't positive, you know?
Right.
And they're getting fed from their friend. And it's hard to shut it down, even if you shut it down at home, because their friends there have it. So there's really hard to get absolutely any control over it.
Actually, in my principle of it, raising kids as a 4th grader and a 6th grader is like, I'm not going to protect you from that because I want to hold you in it. Well, shit.
Well, you can be that person to be there.
Storm, I want you in my house because you're going to have to leave someday. You are leaving.
And you're going to have to learn how to deal with it. And you need to do it now so you can deal with it when you're on your own.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not that I'm like, do whatever you want.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm like, you know, this is the reality.
That's interesting because I'm so glad my kids are older now. I'm so glad I'm past this and not. My kids were getting out of school right when smartphones were starting to get into kids' hands. They were starting to just show up, and I'm really glad that I, as a parent, am not dealing with that side of it or this side of things. And my kids are like, "Oh, okay, there you go, off into the world now." And like, it stresses me out for what parents are dealing with now about what their kids can have. And I wonder, I'm like, what do you do? Do you just put them on full lockdown mode? Or are you regulating that to death? Or are you giving them some limited exposure? Or like what you're saying, you're letting that they've got exposure, but you're trying to guide them through the crap.
That, and like I've already spoke of, I'm raising my kids in the church. I believe that God is above all this, and as long as they have a strong foundation in their faith and they're there,
they can weather all these storms coming.
Because they will. Because I had to. Like, I'm by way, no way, shape, or form who I am sitting here almost 40 without a whole lot under my belt that I had to build my resiliency and spin into gold. I had to make the what was ugly in the world, because the world, it hurts to be human.
Yeah.
And to alchemize that and spin it to gold and make it so I can take it and I can mentor people, I can lead people, I can love people, and love above all else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's preparing them or giving them the tools to deal with all of this stuff that they're going to have just thrown at them all the time. And we had a conversation about that just this morning.
Yeah, giving them that space, because I was talking about, like, with my kids and stuff, and we're in the age of such, the term helicopter parent,
Mm-hmm.
and how these kids, certain kids I've seen, like, their parents protect them so much and they do everything for them that once they get out of high school, depression rates, suicide rates, because they get out on their own and they don't know how to handle life. They don't know how to handle these feelings. They don't know how to handle any of this. And so these rates are going up and they just don't know how to do life. And so I was just saying that, I was like, I've really, changed with my kids about, like, letting them experience these things and make these mistakes and have that so that they have the tools to go out, and I don't have to worry as much,
Yeah.
You always worry, but you know what I'm saying, that they have a better foundation. And as parents, we want to protect them from everything. I don't want my kids to hurt or have bad things happen, but if I don't let them, they are not going to know how to handle it.
Well, and I think it really goes back to that perfectionist mentality, where it's like, if this is happening to my kid, then how is that a reflection on my parenting, that I'm not the perfect mom, I'm
and
not
there's
the perfect
competitive parenting, and if you're doing this and you have all these people looking at you, well, you're not doing this, or you're not doing this, and you're like, oh yeah, that's huge.
But I believe it is not my job to make my kids comfortable.
Yeah,
it is my job to keep my kids safe.
Yeah,
and it is my job to guide and support them. But it is not my job to rescue them from everything.
Yeah.
And I think too, because if you look at generational parenting in the generations, 2 generations, say, beyond us, our parents, our grandparents, it was pretty hardcore. It was pretty now what's the word I'm looking for?
Seen, not heard, you don't cry,
like dominate like there was definitely a hierarchy. Dictatorship, yes. And so then you have, and there was a lack of nurturing and kindness, and there could be. And so then you have parents now that then they had kids and they went the way other direction, i.e. helicopter parents. And they just wanted to
protect and love them and nurture all the time
because they had all that pain.
So it's sitting here swinging.
So
back
it's like
and
a
forth.
trauma you went through on this side, and so you go the complete opposite way because you're like, I don't want to feel it. I don't want my kids to feel that.
I never want anybody to feel that ever. So I'm going to really coddle my child. And I've had to do a lot of my own healing. No parent's perfect. I already know my kids will go to therapy because of me.
They all will.
I told my kids many, many times when they were growing up, I'm like, hey, I'm giving you stuff to talk to your therapist about. So, tell it to your therapist. You know, I understand. I'm like,
you get it.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't get out of it without some scars along the way. And so I have my scars for sure. And
because we're all human.
What and anything I hopefully I'm not crossing any lines, so if I am, please.
I will.
Yeah. But has there been any fallout for your kids then at those ages at school with what you're talking about with your message of kind of a, I guess, are you calling it body positivity, or what do you call it? What's your message?
Embodiment.
Yeah. Have they experienced fallout from that?
It's interesting you asked that question because my son recently has asked some questions because he's on Instagram, so he can see that stuff.
Okay.
And so it does trigger on him. Why are you doing this? As though somebody else would see, which makes me more conscientious. I'm like, I can understand he's 12 and he doesn't. And that's the thing too, is we just had a conversation this morning. What are you being fed about women and about how women should look? Because he didn't like the shirt his sister was wearing, which was a sparkly red shirt, because he correlated that to someone who would want to look more attracting male attention. And so it's definitely has brought forward some conversations more from him than my daughter. My daughter's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's great, but she's 10, and still pretty innocent. My son, from the male perspective, is kind of like,
he's looking at it a little bit and men and women, they view things completely opposite. So to get that and I'm just continuing to be observant about it to see, just for my own reflective purposes too, around the perception of how men receive that, how men receive women embodying themselves, of being okay with themselves.
Yeah,
and
just because a woman's naked doesn't mean anything
sexual and
right.
What are your thoughts on and when I use the word body positivity, that seems to be the catchphrase that people use. What are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like some people, I don't know, they're all over the spectrum on that. It's like I feel like it's a good message about being, your best you is just being healthy, is being what your version of healthy is. And whatever that is.
Mentally,
I don't know.
Physically,
mentally, physically healthy, that's your best you.
Emotionally.
Whatever that weight is for you that you're healthy at, I don't know. I don't know much about all of that stuff, but somewhere where you are okay with yourself, you're not beating yourself up. I agree. I think of that. But there is a kind of a, I don't know, it seems like I don't know that it's a movement or what. It's just like that's where everything's going. It's just like 100% positive. What are your thoughts on this, about this? People that are like, no matter what weight you are, no matter whatever, it's all body positivity at all times. There's, anything that is saying that, hey, somebody's not healthy, that's shaming, that you're shaming. What are your thoughts on that?
Do you think that it's went overboard the other way? No matter what, you should have body positivity, even, you know what I'm saying? Do you think that that's, I don't know if that's being clear, but.
Yeah, no, I get it. What I feel like I'm hearing you saying is what is my perspective in relationship to what's being put out there to people as body positivity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it is a good hope. You know, I feel as though I get so deep, though. I'm such a deep person. It's hard for me not to be like, well, there's this, and this. But where we can come into a relationship of acceptance and learning about how our body works. That we learn more and more detail about the energetics and the nature of ourselves individually. Because gosh.
It's personal.
Well, it's personal, and forever, amen, they've been selling something around the body, right? Dieting, diet pills, Weight Watchers.
Take this pill and all your things will go away and you'll be this.
This drink, this shake, this everything.
Yeah.
And where it's about learning about yourself and creating a lifestyle for yourself. I work out like a hard cardio. I need 3 or 4 days a week. That's my body design, though. Other people's body design could require gentle yoga 5 days a week, whatever. But I know that my energy and my body requires that, and really allowing people to learn more about themselves internally, to lead themselves, to get attached to a feeling versus this idea that it's out here.
It's all just about physical instead of like emotional, mental, and just the healthy. To know yourself and in tune with yourself instead of projecting like, oh, she does this, so that's what I need to do.
Right.
Or you gotta fit into this chart.
This box, and this is what's going to make everything perfect instead of being real to who your stuff. Yeah.
But I do see that there's value in it, because looking forward, I kind of think about trying to drive somewhere by looking in the rearview mirror or looking in your back window. It's harder to do that, and it's harder to go in reverse. So if you're constantly looking at what's wrong, it's hard. But if you're looking through the front windshield and ready to make your journey, and with a good energy about it, good attitude about it, with this body positivity, then maybe that's enough to get you in a place that you get attached to the feeling that you receive as you learn about your body. I believe that usually what is sustainable is because you get attached to something, that a way it makes you feel. Yeah. You like the way something makes you feel, so that's why you get attached to it. I mean, it's no lie that alcohol sells well in our world, and people like the way it makes them feel in the initial parts or whatever. Yeah. I mean, or whatever you want to use. Pepsi, soda, candy, medical marijuana, the gym, reading.
Yeah, whatever that case may be. Yeah.
Whether it's whatever. It's the way people like the way they feel from an experience that'll bring them back to it.
It's creating that habit.
Yeah, like I rarely have sugar, gluten, alcohol. That's not because that's bad. It's because I like the way I feel. I prefer the way I feel. And if I have some, I made fruit pizza for Super Bowl. I ate it. That shit was good.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not holding yourself to, the extremeness. You're just being real.
Or that, like, I need to go to the gym today. I feel, my body can feel that I haven't moved enough.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
I wonder how we analyze what we do at work, and if that would classify as 3 days of cardio, or could we get credit for that?
Well, I see my exercise circle and all my steps and my flights of stairs, all the calories I burn. So I would think that it would be.
Well, what's your inner knowing tell you? I decide yes.
Yes, exactly. I do. On those 3 days, I'm like, I'm not worried about, I need to go for that walk or I need to do something. I've done it.
Yes, I'm at it.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been working with a naturopath, and we were creating a program around for a lot of burnt. It's her reach out to moms that are overextended, and it's like, we'll go exercise. Well,
you go tell a mom that's burnt out to go exercise and see how well you receive that.
Right. So us working on a program that encapsulates all of the mind, body, and soul aspect of things, because most people are already aware of what they need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just about leading yourself into doing what you need.
Taking that action.
Yeah, when you already feel overextended, and that's that seems to be our culture, overextended.
Yes,
Oh, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I'm relating with everything you're saying. I'm like, yep, that's me. I'm like, yeah, it is. We all know, like
Yeah,
what
we
you
all
just said.
can-
We know what we need, but we just
There's that empathy thing.
to get there to doing it and pulling it off. Like, yeah, there's so many things like that I'm guilty of that I'm like, oh, so many things I know I need.
And at the end of the day, you're just tired. And I'm sorry, but sitting down, reading that book or zoning out on something feels a whole lot better at that moment, because you're tired.
Yes.
You're tired.
And that's why I love the direction I'm shifting in is mentoring people. I'd like to consider myself a healer, an accountability partner, and a mentor, all in one, being able to help people access what they already know is within them because they're seeking something.
To help them access that and give them that motivation to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we live in a lot of that masculine energy, like you're talking about. I just need to sit down and chill. Where it's do. That's a lot of the masculine
Well, and I call it like the new hustle culture, where I was telling you, like, everybody can't have an empty day on the calendar because they don't know what to do with their time, and to actually, it's okay to have that empty day and just to be, where people don't know what to do with it anymore because everybody is so used to being on the go and have all these events and all these things just filling up their calendar that, it's becoming one extreme to the next.
It's that people take it too far.
Yes.
Like hustle culture to a certain degree is good for some people that need to get off the couch and you need, be driven
make
about
yourself
something
accountable and
whatever.
go.
But then there's the people who are like, well, if I'm not going 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, then I'm a loser.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to find that balance in there. You got to find, if you're going to put in those hours, this is what me personally, I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I just be more effective and efficient with the hours that I have?
More present.
And just more productive in those hours because I'm putting my efforts toward what I should be putting my efforts toward instead of just being here for the sake of being here, putting in tons of hours. Like that's been a struggle for me. It's
more intentional with your time.
Right. But I feel like you're right, as a culture, there's a lot of people that are just so it's just so push. There's that, and then there's the other side that is telling you, no, don't do anything. It's okay. You don't have to do that. Live in your mom's basement forever. It's okay.
Yeah, and with
there's
anything,
like all these extremes. It's like people can't figure out, or
like
they
it's
can't.
somewhere in the
Some people
middle
can.
there.
It's in the middle. You got to find that middle. I mean, I'm trying to find that middle more and more because, getting older, like it's feeling tired and burnt out and wondering, hey, are we putting our efforts in the right way? And
just stopping and changing directions too, because with the world changing and things changing, and being conscious and intentional with what your priorities is, because what my priority might be doesn't mean that other person's priority is that, and being intentional with what your priority is, like in a list, what is your top priority, and working like where you should be putting your efforts more and building from that.
Yeah, go where your energy flows.
Yeah.
Where you're excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, what gets you excited.
What's next on the in the front?
Your crossroads.
Yeah, not looking back. Not looking at the rear view, but what are you looking at now? Where are you heading with all this?
Yeah, I want to put together more group programs, like more, not group, even programs of like master class things. I have one that's coming out in the next couple of weeks called Unleashed. And even it has to do a lot with creating the year you want, even though we're in February. I think January is an awful time to do.
I agree. I love that.
New Year's resolutions.
Yes, me too. I've always never been a January.
Distance yourself from the New Year's resolution crowd.
Yeah.
And is this something you're holding at your place then? Is it?
So it's all digital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I have the recorded videos, and then I have like homeworks or action steps that you can do in developing to anchor into a year of what you want that to look like, from healing to looking forward, looking back and then come to the present moment, and then look forward. Like, one thing I do is write at least 111 things I want to do in the year.
Oh.
So writing a list of things that I'm going to remember. So I look at that at the end of every month and cross off what I've done and read what I need to do and make little notes of what it was. Forgiveness, I think, is a huge part of moving forward. So we work on forgiveness. And then after that, I'm creating to follow a leadership program, because I do think a lot of the misfire in what all we're talking about is people being self-led. And I don't know if that is just who I am. I think it's who I am, but I also think it's how I was raised. I have a lot of self-leadership. And so really accessing within yourself to lead yourself.
The discipline.
And more than the commitment, the discipline, but also when you have something that works for you, makes you excited, or where your energy goes, it's not hard. Learning about yourself.
That's true.
So learning to lead yourself in
what makes you, because I think so many of us go in these things or these directions that we're not excited about, but that's what's expected.
Yes, exactly right. Or, that external, living per external feedback all the time.
Yep.
All the time. So I'm going to continue to build into those kind of programs where people can access them as they choose. Continue to do the breath work. You guys should really come in and try some breath work. Anybody who wants to try breath work, I do the first one for free because not a lot of people are familiar with it. And
see if it kind of works for them, or if they understand what they're doing.
Because it's hard to explain. It's an activating breath that you bring into the body to your pelvis, and then up into the heart and out, and it releases your feel-good hormones, and it allows you to really inhabit your body. I did a year of breath work with a coach, and that probably was one of the most healing things I've ever done in my life, because your body really holds on to a lot of things. And so anybody who's interested in breath work can hit me up, and I meet up with them for free to see if it's the right thing for them. And then continuing to do the events at the studio, see where Ty and I go. I went to a hat burning thing last weekend. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
No.
It was so fun. It's like
a hat burning.
So
you decorate hats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you burn like leather burning and stuff on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was like, this could be a really fun thing. So we'll see where that goes. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of human design. If you haven't, I encourage anybody to look it up, because it's really interesting. And it's how your body works, the energy in your body according to your human design. So there's 5 different categories. I'd say it's not replace the personality test, but it's a different approach to how you click. All body based. And so I'm a manifesting generator. Therefore, that means that I run a lot of energy, and I always have a lot of things going. And I used to find myself, I would be like, I'm so flaky. I don't like commitments. I judged myself hard on that, because just because I liked it this week doesn't mean I'll like it next week. It doesn't mean it's going to excite me next week.
Yeah.
So, I'm always picking things up and putting things down and moving with it, but all leads into one thing. So the hat thing, I'm like, I'm just gonna see where it goes.
Yeah,
we'll see if I like it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna put it out there to God, and if He puts some people in my world, then let's do it.
That's
so
great.
I really want to do more mentoring and body healing of people, like the people who've been to therapy, who've done a lot of the work, but still feel like they're in the same trauma looping, the same circle, feel stuck. Like, let's see what's really putting you there. Let's get deep.
Yeah.
I like the depth of things, but I also let's look forward to and see, create your most beautiful dream. What do you dream? What's the most beautiful life you could envision yourself living?
Yeah. That's nice.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Crystal, I want to thank you for coming in and talking to us. I've found all this really fascinating. It's been really interesting getting to learn about you. I feel like I could talk to you for another 2-3 hours very easily, and part of me is I'm kind of crossing my fingers about our hard drive here, that I'm glad these technical difficulties, we got over them to the point where we could do this podcast and record with you. So now I'm I don't want to
push it too far.
I don't want to push it too far. But I do want to hear more from you, and I want to do more of these with you at some point, if that's okay. I feel
Yeah.
like there's so many things I want to dive into with you. I want to learn more about the breath work thing. I think there's a lot more there that I've been interested in, and I'm definitely gonna, take a look at your classes or whatever. We'll dig into all that with you
Yeah.
and learn more about what you're doing there. 'Cause
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I love to connect and meet people and meet new people. You can find me Facebook, Crystal Embodiment Mentor, Instagram. Crystal Embodiment Mentor is what I'm under. And yeah, there's only a certain energetic sustainability to these conversations. So I think we've definitely met where we need to be.
We'll go from there at another
And
time.
we can pick up again when the energy's fresh.
All right, I'm down.
Cool. Thanks for
thank-
having me.
Yes,
It's been
thank
so fun.
you.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah.
And thanks to our TikTok live streamers. I don't know,
Yes,
our
thank you.
subscribers. This is our first time doing the behind the scenes TikTok subscribers access to the podcast. So sorry about all the technical difficulties there in the beginning. That was terrible, but appreciate you guys too. All right, thanks everybody.